Hi, it's Jackie. Here's a new episode of Badass Superstar Selling Show. You want to be my guest? Click on the link below. Hope you enjoy the episode. Hi everyone, it's Jackie Rainforth with the Badass Superstar Selling Show. In our last segment, we're here with Shane Wenzel from Shane Homes Group of Companies. In our last episode, we talked about the better way to build. Today, in this segment, we're going to be talking about Shane's best pieces of leadership advice. Yes, the best pieces of his leadership advice. And I know we're all really excited to hear about that because you know what? It takes a lot to be a great leader these days. And you know what? This man is exactly that. He has been running Shane Homes for 10 years as president. He knows he is a staple in this community. He has been, growing this business hand over fist for years. And again, the success is in the numbers. It really is. So talk to us about leadership.
Hold on, my ego just inflated.
Okay, yeah,
here,
well,
so.
Your head deserves to be this big. It really does. Because let's face it, leadership is about making decisions when you don't have all the information.
Yes.
And it's about having to adapt to change and adapt quickly. And Calgary, oh my gosh, we are the roller coaster economy of the world, I swear.
Mm-hmm.
It's feast or famine. How many times have you been through feast or famine? I mean, come on.
Well, I've been doing this for 31 years. I've been through feast or famine, I think, about 5 times.
Yeah. Like Calgary's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And hey, no wonder, right? So tell us, how do you adapt to this kind of change?
Well, I mean, if you use the last year as an example with COVID, with lockdowns, we started off, I was worried, because we rely on a lot of foot traffic at show homes. And all of a sudden, there's no foot traffic. Everybody's working from home or in some sort of stasis of, not doing anything. So they weren't even coming out to the show homes. They were staying at home. So fortunately, we had a website. We were already ahead of the game, because we have an amazing marketing team here because they had virtual tours already going.
That's great.
We already had our salespeople kind of working on social media and, understanding the digital space a little bit more. But, we had to quickly evolve in that direction. So we're taking a process, especially that is half paper, half digital, and trying to shuffle paper around to our staff who are working out of their house. I mean, you want a leadership challenge. That is probably the biggest leadership challenge you're going to have next to a 9/11 event. But that's basically what it was. It was the biggest challenge that we've ever experienced in this company.
Yes.
And I get to be in charge of it.
Yeah. Well, and I think most leaders at this point can agree that probably in the world, that's probably the biggest challenge that they've had.
Yes.
But what makes you unique and different, Shane, let's face it, and we talked about it in the earlier segment, is process. And, let's talk about this too. Being a great leader is about having vision. And one of the things that you've always done is you've always had incredible vision. You started social media and the process for social media years before anybody else did. You had a huge head start before anybody did, right? Do you want to tell us that story? Because, I know the story. I remember hearing the story and going, whoa.
Well, I mean, it went back to the 2009 municipal election. And you've witnessed for the first time that politicians were utilizing this platform on social media called Twitter, and that might have been the big game changer. So I had to learn more about it, and truthfully, at first, I didn't enjoy it. I just got online. I was learning about it, and there was no instruction.
No.
Like, who the hell knew how to use Twitter, let alone Facebook and other platforms that were popping up over time? So I got on there, didn't enjoy it at first, then eventually I kind of got into it and started to enjoy it a little bit more. So I opened up, I had my Twitter account, I opened up a LinkedIn account, I had a Facebook account on a dare by my son. I opened up an Instagram account. That's a separate story, but I kicked his butt. But you could see the power of this already. And again, there was no instruction on it, so you kind of made it up. But I mean, it was apparent early on you had to be authentic online.
Yeah.
And you really had to, it was a great way of not only personal branding, but branding your company to boot. So within a couple of years, I actually had somebody internally working on ours for Shane Holmes half of their time rather. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. A little opposition from, the chairman of the board.
A little?
Same opposition he had to websites in 1996. But it just kind of evolved from there.
Right.
And it became a tool to use. And now our salespeople use it. Now our staff internally use it. And, our favorite word running around the office sometimes is content. Content. For anyone who's into social selling, it's all about content. Yes.
Consistency and content. Those are the two, right?
Yes.
Consistency and content. But it is about vision. You had the vision. You had the vision. You implemented way before many companies saw it. You had everything set up so that people could buy online, could do all of these things online. And so talk to me about vision. Talk to me about leadership and vision, and what is your role there? What do you, as a leader, what are you putting in place for vision? How do you go through that process in your mind?
A lot of planning, a lot of communication.
Tell us more.
We're very unconventional with our strategic planning sessions. We have 2 of them. We don't do it at the beginning of the year. We do it in March.
And why
and
March?
That's because we don't know what's going to happen in the year until we get to that point. I don't know why anybody would try and plan their year out based on January, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
But we have a follow-up session in the fall. But one of the better lines for how people are allowed to communicate in that session is, there are no don't beat a dead horse, and there are no bad ideas.
Don't beat a dead horse, and there are no bad ideas. Those are great pieces of advice.
Yes, so
that's great.
Everything's on the table. It doesn't even matter if it's what I added into the conversation. If it's not right, it's not right.
Well,
but this is how you have an organization with a superstar team that's very collaborative, and that helps your company grow. I'm still the final word, but I have a lot of great minds around me, and I intend on tapping into that talent, not ignoring it.
Well, and I think that's huge, because I think there are a lot of companies out there that, a lot of leaders who tend to prefer silence instead of listening to opposition, to,
Where are those companies now?
Exactly.
Just saying.
But it's true, right? There are a lot of companies that tend to snuff opposition and ideas that may not be perceived as great ideas. And obviously you're not that kind of leader. You believe that vision comes from open communication and maybe a bit of resistance and saying, hey, no, let's try this. Let's go down this path.
Well, exactly. Realistically, this company should be able to operate without me at some point in time. So how do you do that? You don't do it by, just me being the chief. We bought builders because there was one big cog in the wheel that went missing. Well, we don't want to be one of those companies. We're here for a long time. We're not here for the short term, and that's why we've lasted 41 years. Right. Because we're able to think outside the box, and we're able to take it to the next level. And we really proved it over the past year, because I think we survived it better than a lot of our competitors.
Good for you. Good for you. Wow. So if you had to give your top 3 pieces of business and leadership advice, what would those be?
Market research, I always like that one, because how do you stay on top of what's happening?
Oh, you do. And it's interesting. I remember you telling me about big windows years ago. You told me about big windows. Do you want to share that story? Share the story about big windows. Your market research.
The long-winded story, because it needs context. I was up at a CMHC conference up in Edmonton, and I had the pleasure of hearing a lady by the name of Joanne Thomas-Yakato speak. And Joanne's claim to fame was the book, The 80% Minority, Listening to the Real World of Women Consumers. And I was intrigued. So when I got back to Calgary from this conference, I phoned her. Said, love to have you come in, love to have you do a session with our sales and marketing team. So she was more than happy to oblige. She came in, and what came out of those discussions, Jackie, was that we wanted to build the first ever, woman's designed home.
Yes.
So what actually was supposed to be one actually turned into two. So we built the Ocado 1, aptly named after Joanne, and the Ocado 2. One was a laned home, the other was a front drive, a single family home. And it was amazing. We had listening groups for past women customers who came in who actually had experience living in their home, and they had in mind what they would change, and boy did they let it rip.
Yeah.
And what we learned from that first home, jokingly of course, is women have expensive taste.
Women have expensive taste.
Women have expensive taste.
I think every husband or partner out there would probably agree.
But that was still an opportunity, because you were able to take those expensive ideas and option them out. So they could pick what was most important to them and to their family included. The second home, different group of ladies who came up with some great ideas. But the big windows, to your point, was that, we were told, why are you chinsing out on the windows? I want big windows in my home. I want natural light flowing in. If the kids are playing in the backyard, I want to be able to keep an eye on them, whether I'm in the kitchen or whether I'm watching TV or if I'm just, mulling around the house. I don't want to be outside. So that's where the big windows came from. And those principles still guide our designs today.
Yes.
And they've just evolved over time as our customer base has changed.
Wow. I think that is the best story. I really do. Because all women love big windows. And it is, you're right, it is about market research. And I think you're right. You have to be in touch with your market. You have to be listening to your customer all the time. And you have to be providing what's in it for your customer, because they're the ones that are making the decisions. And let's face it, 90% of household purchasing decisions are made by the woman, right?
Yes, they are.
Typically.
Well, they're the ones who are in charge. So, well, seriously, when it comes to the home, who's in charge, because they're sitting there saying, I need rooms that are the same size for the kids. I need lots of storage because we have a ton of crap.
Yes.
Big garages, right down to, yes, I want the big home theater system. I just don't want to see the wires and crap down my walls.
Yeah.
So how do you hide that?
Yeah.
We learned a lot.
Good.
And we still apply it today.
Okay, so your first piece of advice would be do market research. What would your second and third piece be?
When it comes down to leadership.
Yeah.
I'll always go back to my favorite line: earn it, don't expect it.
Oh.
Because over the years, I've seen a lot of people just kind of expect to get that raise, expect to get that elevated position, expect. No, earn it.
Right.
We all had to earn it along the way, and that's not a bad thing to say, but you can't expect it now. You can't expect it within 2 years. You take Sebastian as an example. He's very humble in the way he presents himself.
Yes.
Yes, he would love to be on the website, but even he says, I want to earn it first, Dad.
Well, you've done a great job with it.
Thank you.
You really have. He's a great young man. Yeah. Well, and it's true. I think that, a title does not make the person, right? And I think a lot of people make that mistake. A lot of people can make that mistake, and I've seen it many times over, and it's not just in this industry, it's in others. Yes, true. And, okay, so what would your third piece of advice be?
If you can't accept change anymore, it's time to step aside. Even I have to accept that at some point in time, that, my ideas won't be as fresh, my leadership won't be as good, I might not be able to do this another 20 years. I might have to step aside in lieu of somebody who can bring that kind of enthusiasm and leadership in the role of president. So I'm prepared to accept that.
Yeah. And what would you do?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Just wondering.
No, over time, you can develop that kind of second tree where you think, well, I've done all I can in this field. Maybe I have to look over here. My father is a great example of that now, and trust me, it took a while for him to want to step aside. I think he had to feel confidence in what I was doing and he had to know that the company was going to be okay. But now, I mean, he watches over the company as chairman.
Yeah.
But he does other things. He looks at investments. He looks at his philanthropy, and he's quite happy doing that.
Oh, good.
You know?
Good. Yeah. I would think it'd be hard to let go of the baby.
Sure
you know?
it is.
Yeah. I think that would be hard to let go.
Well,
for sure.
when you started it from scratch and you grew it from nothing,
yes,
it's very hard for him. But at the same
Yeah.
time, he's the first one to admit he can't do it anymore. He doesn't really enjoy the way things have changed. You know, he'll always reference back to how easy it was to build a house way back when as compared to now. Yes, things have changed.
Well,
you know, I can accept it.
Yeah.
Not all the time I can accept it, but you know, but certainly I can work within it. And there will come a point in time where I can't, and you know, maybe Sebastian's the one to pick up the mantle and just kind of run with it.
Huh.
That would be a joy to see.
That would be a joy to see. Well, thank you so much, Shane, for that. Those are great pieces of advice. Really, really great. Our first is, of course, do market research.
Mm-hmm.
The second is, of course, you know, be willing to accept change and know when your days are done, I guess you could say. Hey?
Yes.
And of course,
earn it.
Yeah,
earn it. Don't expect it.
Don't expect it. And I think for leaders, that's a big one because, you know, and I think one of the things that you said as well, there's almost a fourth one in there, is be willing to listen. Be open in your communication and be willing to listen because that's a big one. That is a big one. So thank you. Thank you for that. Well, listen, that's another great segment with Shane Wenzel from Shane Homes Group of Companies. We really appreciate it. Shane, how can everyone get a hold of you here?
Well, they can get a hold of us, you know, simply on our website, shanehomes.com.
And it is a great website. You should see, wow, there is a better way to buy at Shane Homes Group of Companies. Thanks. We'll see you in the next segment, everyone. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, if you want to subscribe, you can follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We have new content coming out every day. You don't want to miss it.